one of the first slides you should see, it should be saying the end of trash, March 2020 National Geographic issue. What we want to talk about is with this issue, they were going across the globe and they were looking for different ways to reduce, reuse, and recycle different forms of waste. And so one thing with that is they were doing things with like geothermal energy and agricultural solutions, but when it came to clothing waste, they didn't really have any real ways to solve the issue. It was really locally based and it wasn't making too much of an impact. And so that was one big issue that popped out to me, is that there is no current solution for clothing waste in the US. But the problem with this is, if you've heard of fast fashion, the amount of clothing that's being produced worldwide has increased by 400% in the last 20 years. Wow. And so now we produce around 80 billion new pieces of clothing every single year, and that's worldwide. And then going locally to the US, the problem with producing so much clothing is that honestly humans don't need that much clothing. And so the rate at which we're buying, wearing, and ultimately getting rid of, whether it be throwing away or donating these pieces of clothing, is shortened, like exponentially. And so the amount we're throwing away is rising just as much as the amount we're producing. So the US actually sends about 21 million pounds of textile waste to landfills every single year. And this happens whether they are thrown away or donated. Some people will say, hey, I'm helping the environment because I'm donating my clothes. I don't just throw them away. And honestly, I thought that more people did donate their clothes because that was normal in my family. But as it turns out, 85% of Americans actually throw away their clothes, just like all of it. And the average amount of clothing that every single American, like individually throws away every single year is 81 pounds per year.
Per person.
Per person.
Okay.
And so obviously when you throw something away, it'll go straight into our local landfills, like in the US. Okay. And so first, obviously that's a problem.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of it, because really when you donate your clothes and you say, hey, I'm doing this good deed, you know, it's gonna be more eco-friendly if I donate it instead of throwing it away, obviously, it's not the case. Because the problem with when we give it to these charities is they're receiving so much clothing that they can't sell it on the stores. So if you give something like Goodwill or a local thrift shop, most thrift shops or charities can only sell about 20% of what they're given in the store, which is about 1/5,
and
obviously.
they throw away the rest.
And well, actually, the rest will go to third-party recycling companies. Okay. So they'll take all the waste and they'll sort it, and they will try and obviously recycle it. But the issue with this is 1/3 about it is, let's see, one-use rags that they'll use in like industrial settings, and then another third of it will be made into things like upholstery stuffing and things like that. And then the rest, especially regarding clothing mainly, will be sent to developing countries. So if you've seen people who say like, oh, we give clothes to entrepreneurs around the world and help bolster local businesses in poor countries, this doesn't work. If you've seen Poverty Inc., that was screened on campus just about a month ago, it was this great movie about how, you know, when helping hurts, if you've read that book. We're giving them so much clothing, they can't sell it. They can't sell all of it. And we've drastically, literally, we've destroyed their economy when it comes to clothes. They cannot produce their own clothes because they can't compete with us sending them free clothes. And so they're now depending on us. And if you can see right here, this is one of the markets that are in places like Tanzania and other parts of Africa where we send a lot of our clothes. And they receive so much of it that the most expensive item is men's slacks, and it goes for about $7. And everything else, like women's tops, are worth nothing. They cannot sell them. No one will buy them because you can go to their landfill and to their garbage dumps and just take it. So that's what happens actually, is what happens is when we send them so much clothing, they can't sell all of it and it goes to their landfills. And they don't even have protected landfills for one thing, like we do, where it's regulated. And then they also do not have thrift shops or charities who will try and decrease this because, you know, that's after we've sent it to our charities. It's worth nothing. So they can't even sell that.
So places like Goodwill or Salvation Army, they're sending it to third world countries.
Yeah.
And it's causing this problem.
Exactly. So it just goes through the system until it ultimately ends up in a landfill whether you donate it or not.
Okay.
And so this is a drastic issue because one, we're, obviously causing this huge environmental crisis as well as crashing local economies around the world. But this is a local problem as well that unfortunately GCU is a part of. Because if you look here on this next slide, so 12 miles away from GCU is the Glendale landfill in red. And so the Glendale landfill is right next to the Agua Fria River. There's a highly dense residential area in here, a whole bunch of local businesses. And here is the Westmet campus, which is like a community college that actually tours GCU quite often. I give them tours, as well as all these farms right here. And the University of Phoenix Stadium is right here. And as you can tell from the size difference, the Glendale landfill can take about 6 or more University of Phoenix stadiums. So it's already obviously really huge. And the problem is with GCU's marketing, obviously if you go to an event, you're gonna get a free t-shirt. When people say t-shirt time, you freak out. When you go to a basketball game, it's just all free t-shirts.
Yeah.
And so the problem is we actually produce around 146,000 shirts every single year.
Oh, wow.
And because estimated wise, whether you donate it or throw it out, not that people would throw away GCU shirts. We love our brand.
Eventually, yeah.
Exactly, it's going to end up in a landfill. So it's actually estimated that 84% of clothing will end up in a landfill. And so we're sending roughly 123,000 shirts to the Glendale landfill or worldwide every single year. The problem with this is it's with modern clothing, with fast fashion, they also use way cheaper materials. And so most pieces of clothing, no matter what you look at, shirts, pants, anything will be made out of either cotton or polyester. Polyester is entirely made out of petroleum and oil and plastic. And cotton is called the dirtiest crop because it has about 1/3 of a pound of chemicals just to produce 1 pound of, not to mention the fire retardants, bleaches, and dyes that are added later. And so we're sending pounds and pounds of chemicals and almost an oil spill of plastic to both our community and to the worldwide environment every single year. And this doesn't go with the GCU mission statement. We're not here to pollute our environment, obviously.
Yeah.
And as a Christian university, we aim to take care of our environment. So I would like to show this problem to GCU that it's not matching with what we believe and to find a solution for it. So actually, as students, we have proposed a solution. So this whole thing that I am talking about is Works of His Hands Designs. So we are a student-led sustainability movement on campus that is pushing for greater materials to be used in Canyon promotions so that when they're handing out these t-shirts, they're made out of cleaner materials that will biodegrade easily so that they will have little to no chemicals in them, made out of organic cotton or natural polyester, and they will biodegrade in as much as 5 months. And that's about the amount of time it takes for an apple to biodegrade. And, obviously then, as opposed to what we're producing now, there'll be no chemicals and they will not be there for thousands of years. So that is what we're proposing for GCU to do. And so one thing that is really cool about this is obviously being sustainable is really, really in right now. You see it everywhere in the store.
Yeah.
And so the really amazing thing about this is GCU can extremely, extremely benefit off of this if we were to change into more eco-friendly materials. And so one big thing is that we can build our brand over what Gen Z is looking for when they apply to colleges. For example, about 60% of people in Gen Z applying to colleges are somewhat very much or strongly impacted by the eco-friendliness of the different colleges they're applying to and how that affects their decision, as well as just consumer-wise. 65 to 70% of consumers under 35 are shown to choose brands based on their ethical practices. And so we can prove that we can actually increase our admissions and grow our brand just because we are more eco-friendly. And so if we were able to build off that, we would be, first of all, the first in the country to do such a thing. If we look at different kinds of colleges who are ranked to be very eco-friendly, they're ranked that because they either compost their foods, use reusable energy, have a lot of environmentally centered programs, or they're carbon neutral. So none of them have actually done something like this. And unlike other ones, we have our Canyon Promotions program business on our campus. And so we can switch much more easily and much faster into eco-friendly materials than these other colleges. So both would be easier for us, and we'd be the only one in the nation to do this. So if we were able to capitalize on this and show the world what we were doing, then we can make a huge name for ourselves in the world of college sustainability. Because right now, we are not known to be sustainable at all. With our trash cans, our recycling bins, anything like that, we're not really known for anything. But if we were able to capitalize on this, we could grow our brand just to a whole nother level. We are not here to say, well, me representing Works of His Hands Designs, are not here to say, hey, change everything right now, everything about your marketing system, we want it different. We're saying like, hey, we can prove that this will work. We are proposing that we run an experiment to prove that we can increase admissions and grow our brand with current students. And so if we're able to prove that current students will invest in this and buy t-shirts even though they're more expensive just because they are sustainable, we can predict that future students will invest in GCU because we are sustainable.
So you're saying this study would be done before you actually implement the t-shirts being more ethical, or are you doing that after?
Before.
Before, okay. So to prove to GCU that this actually would increase admissions.
Exactly. So we don't want to just waste GCU's money or do it just kind of because we think that it might work. We want to show with actual students who both go to GCU and will come to GCU that this is going to work.
Okay.
And so what we're going to do is produce about 120 t-shirts. Half of them will be out of more sustainable materials and be marketed that way, even though they'll be around $5 more, but everything else about the two t-shirts should be about the same. So when students look at it, you either choose the ethical one and the sustainable one, or the non-sustainable, less eco-friendly one. So with that, we can prove that, you know, how many students will invest in eco-friendly measures on their campus. As well as we would release an optional survey to prospective students asking how much their college decisions are based on the ethical and eco-friendly practices of their different decisions. And so we can also see with students visiting the university right now what they're thinking and where they're leaning towards based on sustainable practices. And so after 2 months of this, if around 70% of students both buy the more expensive shirt, and if prospective students say, yeah, it does affect my decision, then I will work with the marketing team to create a 4-year plan to just transition into using more eco-friendly materials, such as organic cotton and natural polyester. So the thing is with this is we would be the first only invested in the nation to do this. First of all, we can take care of the environment, grow our brand exponentially, take care of students who are already doing these kind of measures on campus already and who do care about eco-friendly materials and clothing and things like that, as well as attract future students. And so the team, our designs, the manufacturers we're partnered with, and our printers and the students, we're all ready. And so we're actually just here to ask if the GCU administration is ready to try it out and see if it works for the better. And so, yeah, just to conclude this, I'm Lillian Martin, this is Works of His Hands Designs, and we're proud GCU students. Thank you.